Ontario mobster Pat Musitano was gunned down in Burlington today. His death comes 3 years after his brother was murdered and attempts on his own life.
1:10 p.m. Plains Road East, Burlington, Ontario. A black GMC Denali sits idling in a plaza parking lot, engine still running. The driver's door is open. Pat Musitano is on the pavement beside it. Witnesses say there was a brief exchange, then the shots. No shouting, no one running at first. The person responsible walks away, while people nearby try to understand what just happened. Police arrive within minutes and seal off the area. Investigators focused on one detail. He stepped out of the vehicle on his own. That means this moment didn't begin with the gunfire. It began with a meeting, and someone knew exactly where he would be. Missed the button? Go ahead. Subscribe now so you don't forget later. His name was Pasquale Musitano, Pat. Police identified him as the head of the Musitano crime family. 3 generations, more than 50 years in Hamilton, Ontario. When Pat died in that parking lot, the family was gone. Brother Angelo shot in his own driveway in 2017. Uncle Tony dead April 2019. Father Dominic dead 1995. The line ended. This family had survived everything. Police investigations, federal convictions, 10 years in federal prison, and more than one attempt to kill its members. It did not survive what Pat and Angelo set in motion in 1997, and it all traces back to one man. Angelo Musitano Sr. Historical accounts and Italian court records describe what happened in 1937 in Delianova, Calabria. He had just walked out of prison on a prior murder conviction. He came home, learned his sister Rosa was pregnant and unmarried, walked her through the streets to her boyfriend's house, and shot her on the doorstep. The boyfriend ran. He survived. Italian police issued warrants. Angelo left for France, then Canada. He settled in Hamilton under the name Jim D'Agostino. For 28 years, Hamilton police had no idea he was wanted in Italy for his sister's murder. Interpol found him. Hamilton police were notified May 8, 1963. 2 years later, March 3, 1965, they arrested Angelo at his brother Pasquale's house. Fingerprints matched Italian records from 1937. He was extradited. He was 56. He left behind 2 nephews in Hamilton, Dominic and Anthony. Court records and police files show both were raised under Angelo Sr.'s influence and trained in how the Calabrian mafia operated. Those nephews went on to build the Musitano crime family in Hamilton, and decades later, investigators would still trace events back to that moment. 60 years later, Angelo's great-nephews made a decision that ended with both of them dead. May 31, 1997, Pat and Angelo had Johnny Papalia shot in the back of the head in a Hamilton parking lot. Papalia was 73, made member of the Buffalo crime family, the dominant organized crime figure in Ontario for decades. Court testimony later indicated the brothers had secured authorization from Vito Rizzuto, head of the Montreal-based Rizzuto crime family, before proceeding. Investigators later questioned whether that protection held at all. Police arrested their hitman, Kenneth Murdock, crack cocaine addict, on the family payroll since 1985. During interrogation, police played him wiretap recordings of Pat and Angelo, calling him a dim-witted scumbag, and talking about having him killed. Murdoch cooperated. Both brothers convicted. 10 years each. Out in October 2006. Then, May 2, 2017. Then, May 2, 2017. Angelo pulled into his driveway in Waterdown shortly before 4 p.m. A gunman fired multiple shots through the open truck window. Angelo was found inside his vehicle. He was 39. The date was 29 days before the 20th anniversary of the Papalia murder. Months later, police monitoring Dominic Violi picked up a conversation, according to court documents, when an undercover officer expressed surprise that Pat hadn't been killed before Angelo. Violi said he thought it was a message to Pat, and that Pat would be next. 3 years and 2 months later, Pat was dead in Burlington. The collapse didn't start in 1997. It started in 1983, with a promise that Murdoch later described as the dumbest mistake I ever made. Pat Musitano was born in 1968, Angelo in 1974. Their father, Dominic, ran one of Hamilton's three major organized crime families. Police estimated by 1992 the family's illegal gambling operation alone, sports betting, card games, dice, slot machines in bars, generated $14 million a year. Extortion, loan sharking, and protection rackets ran alongside it. Pat and Angelo grew up inside that operation. Police documented Pat as having detailed knowledge of organized crime history. The five families, the Ndrangheta, Chicago's Outfit, Boston's Winter Hell Gang. Dominic offered to fund his university education anywhere: McGill, Toronto, Oxford, Harvard. Pat declined. A Hamilton police sergeant on the record: Pat Musitano is Tony Soprano before Tony Soprano was on television. To understand what Pat and Angelo inherited, and what made it dangerous, you need to know what their father and uncle built. Angelo Musitano Sr. lived as Jim D'Agostino in Hamilton from 1937 to 1965. Bootlegging, extortion, gambling. Immigration and family records show relatives arriving from Italy during this period, including his brother Pasquale and two sons. Dominic, born 1938. Anthony, birth year unconfirmed. After Angelo Sr.'s deportation in 1965, both nephews stayed in Hamilton. Police records describe Dominic as 5'6", heavy build, gray-green eyes. In December 1974, a driver honked at him in downtown Hamilton traffic. Dominic got out and shot the man. The victim survived, told police he couldn't identify the shooter, and declined to press charges. By 1978, Dominic was running a haulage company used as cover for a protection racket on independent truckers across southern Ontario. Conspiracy to commit extortion charges followed, alongside co-defendants Rocco Lupino and Angelo Natali. Trial ran 5 years, 1983. All three acquitted. That same year, Paolo Violi, head of one of Hamilton's three major organized crime families, was invited to a card game at a local bar. He was shot in the back of the head while seated. Investigators linked the killing to Vito Rizzuto, who was expanding the Montreal-based Rizzuto family into Ontario. With Violi gone, the Musitanos expanded their territory. Note Rizzuto's name, what he provides the Musitanos in 1997, and what ends when he dies in 2013, is directly tied to what happens to Pat and Angelo. Dominic's brother Tony ran separate operations. Between 1978 and 1980, 5 Hamilton bakeries were destroyed in explosions. Each owner had refused to pay Musitano protection money. The press called Hamilton Bomb City. January 1983, police arrested Tony on arson and extortion. Convicted. 15 years at Millhaven Institution. From inside Millhaven, Tony ordered a murder. Target: Dominic Racco, son of Mikhail Racco, Mike the Baker, a member of the Saderno Group, a Calabrian crime network operating across North America. Racco had a cocaine dependency, was using product he was meant to distribute, and owed the Musitano family approximately $500,000. Tony's nephew Giuseppe Avignoni made repeated visits to Millhaven to coordinate the plan. Tony also cultivated a relationship with fellow inmate Billy Rankin, set for release December 1983. The RCMP recorded every visit and every call. They had the complete plan on tape before it was carried out. They did not intervene. December 10, 1983, Musitano associates told Racco they wanted to meet to resolve the debt. He agreed. They drove him to a railway track outside Hamilton, shot him multiple times, and left his body on the tracks. March 1984. Police arrested Tony Musitano, Dominic Musitano, Giuseppe Avignoni, and Billy Rankin. Conspiracy to commit murder. RCMP played the recordings at the 1985 trial. All 4 convicted. Tony received 12 years, concurrent with his arson sentence. Dominic received 6, served 2 before parole. Billy Rankin testified and entered witness protection. August 13, 1995. Dominic died of a heart attack at home. He was 57. Pat was 27. Angelo was 21. They took over. Dominic called in a man he had relied on for over a decade, and asked for a promise. The man agreed. That promise, and the day it broke, is what sent Pat and Angelo to federal prison. And it is what set in motion the killings of 2017 and 2020. Dominic's funeral, August 1995. Every major organized crime family in Hamilton showed up. The Lupinos, the Violis, contacts from Toronto and Montreal. Johnny Papalia, the man who had run organized crime in Ontario longer than anyone, carried Dominic's casket as a pallbearer. 2 years later, Pat and Angelo had him killed. The stated motive? $250,000 in bookmaking debts and a refusal to keep operating as subordinates. But Papalia was a made member of the Buffalo crime family, tied to New York's 5 families. Kill him without authorization, and you're at war within days. They needed cover from above. October 22nd and 23rd, 1997. Pat met Vito Rizzuto on back-to-back days at a Hamilton restaurant. Court testimony later suggested Rizzuto backed the move and agreed to bring the Musitanos under his organization's protection. Per that testimony, the arrangement wasn't only about the debt. It concerned who would control organized crime in Ontario. Now, the man Dominic had called to his bedside. That was Kenneth Murdock, on the family payroll since 1985. Crack cocaine addict. His first documented kill for them, November 21st, 1985. Salvatore Alaimo, a janitor at Stelco Steel in Hamilton. Alaimo's brother Giovanni owed gambling debts to Dominic. Giovanni paid after his brother was killed. Before Dominic died, Murdoch later said Dominic asked him to look after his sons. Years later, in a recorded interview with journalist Peter Edwards, he called that moment the dumbest mistake I ever made. May 31st, 1997. Murdoch reached out to Papalia and set up a 1:30 p.m. meeting at 20 Railway Street. Outside Galaxy Vending, Papalia's vending machine operation. He pitched a walk and talk. No recording devices. Papalia agreed. At 1:30 p.m., Papalia came out. He was 73. Murdoch told him the Musitanos owed money and asked him to put in a call to Pat. Papalia said he would. After about 2 minutes, Papalia turned back toward his office. Murdoch fired once. .38 caliber revolver. Back of Papalia's skull. Papalia was dead before he hit the pavement. Before the investigation moves forward, quick reminder, if this level of detail matters to you, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown. Murdoch walked to his car and left. 2 months later, July 23rd, 1997. Niagara Falls, Ontario. Carmen Barillero, Papalia's underboss, answered his front door. Murdoch was standing there. Per court testimony, he said, "Johnny sent me." Murdoch fired multiple shots. Barillero died in his doorway. Angelo had driven Murdoch to Niagara Falls and waited outside. According to Murdoch's account, Angelo wanted to go in and pull the trigger himself. Murdoch wouldn't let him. Both senior figures of the Papalia organization dead inside 2 months. Frank Papalia, Johnny's brother, didn't retaliate. He retired. The Papalia family's operations ended. Pat was 27. Angelo was 21. It looked like it had worked. Then, November 1998, Hamilton police arrested Murdoch. 3 counts of first-degree murder. Papalia, Barillero, and Salvatore Alaimo. Police played him recordings of Pat and Angelo, calling him a dim-witted scumbag and talking about having him killed. He laid out 12 years of Musitano operations in full. He told investigators that Pat had discussed walking into a Hamilton coffee house with a machine gun to take out multiple rival organized crime leaders in one hit. And in a recorded interview with journalist Peter Edwards, he said, "I promised Dominic I'd take care of his kids. That was the dumbest mistake I ever made." That promise became central to the investigation that followed. Police charged both brothers with first-degree murder. Angelo faced 2 counts, Papalia and Barillero. In plea negotiations, Pat took the Barillero conspiracy charge to get 1 count off Angelo. Both pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit murder in the Barillero case. The Papalia charges were stayed. February 2000. 10 years each. 2004. Parole denied. On record, the notoriety of our name is unfairly interfering with our lives. Both released in 2007. Pat took that charge to protect his brother. That decision resurfaces 14 years later, when someone spray-painted a single word on a garage door in Hamilton that points directly back to it. October 2007, they were out. But what they came back to wasn't what they'd left. Dominic's gambling network had been absorbed by other parties. Investigators noted the support structure around the brothers had largely dissolved. And Vito Rizzuto, the man whose testimony connected him to the Papalia authorization and who had provided the Musitanos a degree of cover for 16 years, died of lung cancer on December 23, 2013. After his release, Angelo joined a church and started writing a memoir, I Found Him, about leaving organized crime and finding faith. In it, he wrote, I was born into a family, not just any family, but the family, a family associated with organized crime. The book contained specific admissions about past criminal activities. It was never published. Angelo was killed before it came out. May 2, 2017. Angelo pulled into his driveway in Waterdown shortly before 4 p.m. A gunman fired multiple shots through the open truck window. Angelo was found inside his vehicle. He was 39. Papalia had been killed May 31, 1997. 29 days after the date of Angelo's murder, 20 years earlier. Police tied a black Honda sedan spotted near the Waterdown address to a March 2017 shooting in Vaughan, Ontario. In that incident, Mila Barberi, 28, a veterinary assistant, was shot in a parked vehicle with her boyfriend, Saverio Serrano. Barberi died. Serrano survived. Investigators identified Serrano's father, Diego Serrano, as the likely intended target, based on his connections to the 'Ndrangheta. James Dubrow, the killing of the woman in Vaughan by accident wasn't very professional at all. The mob does not like that. Three people came up in the Angelo murder investigation: Jabril Abdallah, Michael Cudmore, Daniel Tomasetti. Abdallah was arrested. He'd been working at Mohawk College in Hamilton. Cudmore and Tomasetti were out of the country before police moved. 2018, Daniel Ranieri, the man investigators identified as the organizer, turned up dead in Mexico. Shot. 2020, Cudmore turned up dead in a vehicle on a rural road in Mexico, also shot. Dubrow killing the hitman years later is an old mafia story. Someone put bullets through every window of Pat's house on St. Clair Boulevard. Pat turned down police protection. He switched vehicles, rotated addresses, bought the armored GMC Denali. January 2019, C.C. Lupino, son of Rocco Lupino, one of Hamilton's three major organized crime families, shot and killed in his home. April 2019, Tony Musitano died of natural causes. Pat skipped the funeral. 2 days after Tony's funeral, Pat walked out of his lawyer's office in Mississauga. A shooter was waiting. Multiple gunshot wounds. Police thought he was dead at the scene. He wasn't. Hospital, emergency surgery. Discharged a week later. He said nothing to investigators. Police had recorded Dominic Violi telling an undercover officer after Angelo's 2017 killing, "Whoever killed Angelo was sending a message to Pat. Pat Musitano will be next to go." Pat made it through 2017. He made it through 2018. He made it through 2019. The pattern ended July 10, 2020. July 10, 2020. 1:10 p.m. Pro Patio Furniture Parking Lot, 484 Plains Road East, Burlington, Ontario. Pat Musitano stepped out of his armored GMC Denali and met someone in the lot. He was shot multiple times. The suspect drove away in a gray four-door sedan. Police described it as similar to an Infiniti Q50 with a sunroof. Family associate Giuseppe Avignoni was in the Denali. He was also shot. He survived. 9 days later, police found Grant Edward, a Musitano associate, dead in a field near London, Ontario. 1 week after Pat's death, someone spray-painted "Rat" on Avignoni's garage door, letters 6 feet tall. 2 vehicles in his driveway burned to frames that same night. That word indicates someone believed Avignoni had passed information to police or to rivals about where Pat would be and when. Whether that's accurate has not been established. No charges have been laid against Avignoni. Go back to the hook. Pat had the armored truck. He rotated addresses. He skipped his uncle's funeral. He survived 4 attempts. He did everything a man who knows he's being hunted does. And then he got out of the truck to meet someone he trusted. That's the part investigators haven't closed. Not who pulled the trigger, who made the call, who knew Pat well enough and had access to his movements, and gave someone his location on July 10, 2020. That question is still open. The Musitano crime family is gone. Pat dead. Angelo shot in 2017. Tony dead 2019. Dominic dead 1995. Angelo Musitano Sr., convicted in absentia in Italy in 1940 for his sister Rosa's murder in 1937, extradited in 1965. 3 generations, more than 50 years in Hamilton. Daniel Tomasetti, one of the men identified in Angelo's 2017 killing, hasn't been found. A $50,000 reward is still active. Police believe he's in Mexico under a false identity. No one has been charged in Pat Musitano's murder. The investigation is open. Pat and Angelo ordered the Papalia killing in May 1997. It worked. They took his territory. They ran under what court testimony described as Rizzuto's cover. 3 years later, they were convicted. 10 years each. Released in 2007. 23 years after Papalia died. Both brothers were dead. Shot in their own vehicles, in broad daylight, across Hamilton area driveways and parking lots. Angelo Musitano Sr. killed his sister in Delianova in 1937 and ran to Canada. He built operations in Hamilton and passed everything down to his nephews. 83 years later, those nephews' sons were dead across southern Ontario. Investigators describe the case as an 83-year chain of connected events. First killing, Calabria, 1937. Last confirmed killing, a parking lot in Burlington, 2020. 3 generations, no one left. The only question that doesn't have an answer yet is the one the case started with. Someone knew exactly where Pat Musitano would be. And whoever that was, they're still out there. And if you made it this far, you know what to do. Hit the bell. There are more cases like this coming. Cases where the truth is darker than any fiction. See you in the next one.